Fnatic topple G2 and are your spring split champions!
3 rookies prove themselves worthy of the top 4 in the EU LCS. A double kill from Perks! This guy is a madman! He can do it! Oh, Memento! You beautiful man!
Guess the Quadra gonna be a penta for Kobe!
It's time to find out who will rise. This is the EU LCS. Welcome to Berlin, Germany for the start of the semi-finals. Tonight we will write a new chapter in EU LCS history as Schalke 04 and Vitality look to make their first final. This is Ready Check, and those are the teams competing tonight, looking poised and ready to take to the stage. I'm EpicSkillshot supporter as we get a little hello from the mascot of Vitality as well. And before we get into all the action in the semi-final today, let's look back at what occurred in the quarterfinals. Now everything started with thrilling series between Schalke 04 and Splyce. It was an incredibly back and forth battle that went all the way to game 5, with Nukeduck showing off some great LeBlanc mechanics. But when Schalke needed it the most, their new AD carry star Upset led the charge, and he completely took over the team fights on his Kai'Sa, really making himself count and getting Schalke 04 that victory. Now with that win, Schalke are now set to face Vitality in tonight's series. Now our second quarterfinal was Misfits Gaming versus G2 Esports, and after what happened towards the end of the regular season, few would have picked Misfits as the favorites. However, they silenced all the critics with a dominating 3-0 victory as Hans Sama, with help from his team, destroyed G2's dreams of reclaiming the trophy. An amazing performance by Misfits in its own right, and now they are ready for the next challenge as they face off against the current EU LCS champions Fnatic tomorrow. That does bring us to our final headline, that for the first time in 3 years, we will have a final without the 4-time EU LCS champions G2. However, we will see them again in the regional qualifiers as they try to secure Europe's 3rd seed at Worlds and salvage an otherwise disappointing season. That was last week. There's a lot to be talked about, and for now I'd like to join or ask my analyst to join me, Andrew Day, and our special guest for the next 2 weeks, Jonas Colt Anderson from the Unicorns of Love. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you for having me. It's great to have Cold. His insight is always extremely valuable, and he always brings a bit of good banter to us here in Ready Check.
That's right. So straight off the bat, I'll ask you what you think about how the quarterfinals played out.
I mean, so initially I actually thought the quarterfinals would go completely opposite. I thought Schalke would crush Splyce, and I thought the G2 versus Misfits series would go very back and forth. But I was proven wrong. After all, I'm a player. You know, I'm not an analyst. I don't get to do that too much. So interesting, but I think it kind of leads up to what we have for today.
Yeah, that's true. We have a wonderful semifinals, Vitality versus Schalke and Fnatic versus Misfits. Let's start with what we will see tomorrow. Fnatic versus Misfits are defending champions. Up first is a team they may have not expected to face in the semifinals.
Yeah, I think many kind of expected G2 to be the favorites on paper, given Misfits' 2-7 performance in the second half of the split, but they came in very well prepared. When everyone counted them out, they came in with a confident performance. And going up against Fnatic, this will be a rematch of our 2017 semi-final, where it was Misfits who actually got that surprise upset and made it to their first final in Paris.
They completed the upset, and now they're in their territory, right? They're in their best of 5, so we'll see what they can show tomorrow. But today, it's Vitality versus Schalke. Schalke got here, as we saw last week, after beating Splyce. It did take them 5 games, so maybe they'll have to shore up a couple of things before they come into today.
It's definitely a clash of styles. Today, we have Vitality, very aggressive early game, likes to do aggressive plays all the time, and Schalke more controlled, more focused on macro and playing a slow game. So it's going to be a clash of style, and I'm excited to see who's going to come out on top.
It will, but every team in the EU LCS Summer Playoffs also have a shot at making Worlds. Even if you get knocked out, you can play in the Gauntlet to make it to Worlds, and to update you on that race, here is Dracos.
Thank you very much, Shocks. Of course, I'm going to be talking to you today about Schalke and Vitality. But before we get into that, there are a few things to note. Fnatic have already locked a world spot, whether or not they get first or second. Of course, depends on how they do in the semifinals, and in theory, the finals, if they're able to win that one as well. And sadly for them, G2 cannot get the second seed. They simply do not have enough championship points to contest. And in the event of a tie, summer finishes are valued more than spring finishes, so they would lose out in that place as well. Of course, all the teams in the playoffs, though, will have a chance at playing for that third seed in the regional qualifier following the finals in Madrid. Now, first seed and third seed, those are relatively easy. You can win the split, you can win the gauntlet. Second seed is a little bit more complicated, as it is based on who has the most championship points. So let's take a look at how Schalke and Vitality can secure that second seed, starting with Vitality. For Vitality, winning that second seed, it's pretty easy for them at this stage because all they need to do is pull out that semifinals win. Of course, Schalke may prove a difficult opponent, but that doesn't immediately lock them worlds if they win here today. They do also need Fnatic to win tomorrow versus Misfits. That does immediately lock them in for worlds. Whether they get first or second seed, we'd have to wait and find out. Now, Schalke on the opposite side have a bit of a rockier road when it comes to securing a second seed. They need to beat Vitality today. They also need Fnatic to beat Misfits tomorrow, but here's where it gets a little bit more tough. They also need Misfits, another team, to get third over Vitality. Now, on the off chance Vitality do secure that third place, they are going to get 70 points, which would combine with their 30 points from spring, putting them at 100. So even if Schalke were to finish second, they'd still have a 10-point lead on the side of Vitality. Securing second seed is not 100% for either of these teams at this point, but in the event that they can't win the split, at least they could stand a chance at avoiding the gauntlet and taking the next step on their roads to Worlds. Regardless, back to you, Shocks, for the rest of the day.
Thank you so much. These are, of course, things that all the teams are thinking about in the back of their head. I know Yamato brought it up for Vitality, but that could be dangerous because in the end, you have to win as much as you can in the actual playoffs. Cold, you know how important it is to maybe get knocked out of playoffs and then go to that gauntlet. You really, as you are G2, for instance, you have to recalibrate and make sure you're fit.
Definitely. I mean, back when we at Splice went to Worlds, we actually qualified through the points and through the gauntlet system. And what really mattered for us was that we had the highest points. So we got to see every team play, and then we could actually use this to our advantage, and that is why the points are so crucial. And every game really counts for these teams to get the highest possible seed for the gauntlet.
We'll see how it evolves. The gauntlet is, of course, after the finals in Madrid, and after we know who our summer split champion is. And after 10 weeks filled with action, now only Fnatic, Vitality, Schalke, and Misfits are still in the running for that EU LCS title. And we wanted to look at all of the title contenders and see their relative strength. So if we look at the playing field, first off, it does look like we have a very diverse and strong playing field coming into semifinals.
Yes, we do, Shocks. I just feel that coming into this semifinal, it's one of the more competitive semifinals that we've had for a while, because often you look at it and on paper, you can kind of predict who's going to be in your finals. But we have many mixed opinions coming into these semifinals. All of these teams have a real way of qualifying to the finals and even securing the trophy. And having 4 teams all within contention, it definitely makes this Final Four really exciting to watch.
Well, let's go over the Final Four and starting more closely with the reigning EU LCS champions, Fnatic. This is the team that everyone wants to beat and everyone wanted to avoid, and is also the current champion. When you look at their year overall in the European LCS, it has been so successful with the title in spring, and now they seem to be on course again in summer.
They certainly do. Fnatic had a very strong regular season where it was largely off the back of Whippo moving down into the bottom lane, utilizing the 6-man roster, taking the position of Reckless, who to many fans no one really expected, but it worked out beautifully. Now with the shift in meta, we should see more of Reckless coming into this best of 5 later on. And
I do want to say, though, this is the team to beat. I mean, as much as we can say we have 4 strong teams, this is the team with the experience. They have seen it all, you know. They have the star players in Caps and Reckless. We don't even know if Reckless is going to play because Bupo has been playing for majority of the split. So even though it's a team with a lot of things going for them, I think the biggest question mark for me is how's Reckless going to play? Because we haven't seen him much. So in this meta where ADCs are more favorable, I think it's important for us to understand what level Reckless is going to play at.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if he does play, if immediately that championship mentality is still there, he can tap into that and bring it for the team. Since they are the big favorites, it seems like kind of a redundant question. What is the biggest thing that Fnatic has going for them in claiming the title?
I mean, they have majority of the things going for them, but one guy I want to point at is Caps. Obviously, he has probably had the best split he has ever had, leading Fnatic all the way. And there's not really any mid laner that I think can challenge him at the level he's playing at. So he's definitely the guy to watch out for.
If they lift the trophy, it's going to be on the back of Cap. So let's move on to our second seed, Vitality. We'll see them today, and the Young Guns have had a fantastic season overall. If you look at it, they came into the EU LCS and made it to semifinals, but they had a bit of a rocky start in summer.
Yes, they started off 5-5. Things were looking a little tumultuous for this team, and people kind of expected them to fall out of playoffs. But Yamato, he made the change to bring in Kikis, and many question marks surrounded whether or not this was a good decision and how it would affect the team. And it worked out for the better. This team went on an 11-1 record, including tiebreakers, since his arrival, and this team just looks on fire right now.
Yeah, Cold, what is it?
I do want to give a lot of credit to Vitality. You know, not a lot of teams would take this decision throughout the split and be like, we need a new guy. But what it has done for Vitality is that in the past, they're always strong early game team, and with Kikis, they've been even better in the early game. And I think some of the flaws they had in the mid and late game, they have been kind of figuring out with the experience of Kikis. So
do you think they fixed them enough to go even further?
We will see today.
Oh, it's going to be very important. But if they would go all the way, and if they lift the trophy, Vitality, if they win it, what is it going to come down to?
Well, for me, it's all about Kikis, enabling him and working with Jizuke to focus in on that counter-jungling style will be what takes this team to a trophy this split.
Okay, next up, we have their opponents today, Schalke 04, as we see Yamato there giving a little massage to Jizuke, getting him ready for this match versus Schalke 04 and Nukeduck. But if we zero in on their opponents, Schalke came into the year with a star-studded lineup. You know, they are the big football organization. And then in the quarterfinal, they managed to beat Splice, but it was a bit up and down. But if you look at their whole year, I feel like they can be proud of the strides they make throughout the season.
Especially in the later stages of the summer split, they really stepped up their game, found consistency in their play, you know. They played a strong mid and late game, and not so much early game, but they really found what works for them. And especially in the quarterfinal, we really saw their star player, in my opinion, Upset, just popping off in the fights, killing people left and right, and actually pulling out aggressive plays in team fights. And I think that's going to be one of the points I'm going to look at today for Schalke if they want to succeed.
And this team is looking to make their first ever final. Like, that's a big deal for this organization that has struggled in the past over the last 2 years. They've kind of been in and out of our league, and they failed to find that success that they were kind of building towards. But at the beginning of the year, they invested in that infrastructure. They wanted to develop this team over time. And now with the introduction of Amazing and the growth that they've made, they're in a real good position to challenge that top spot.
How much do you think the fact that they are the only slow early game team versus 3 other teams that have a really erratic and aggressive early game is going to influence their run?
So if you ask this question in the start of the split, I would say they don't have much chance. But with the meta changes and with a slower pace of the game where there's a lot more tanks top, there's a lot more hyper carries, it actually fits them well. So in theory, it should work well for them. But I think their early game is definitely a weakness that some of the other teams can abuse.
But if they were to win, what is it going to come down to? Who is the star, or what are you looking at Schalke to make that final run?
Upset?
Upset?
Upset, definitely. And
yeah.
I also think something we cannot talk too little about is the fact that they have actually experienced players. Like they have Visachi in the top lane, they have Amazing in the jungle. These guys have played big matches before, and they know what pressure means and how you can play under this pressure. So I don't want to underestimate them at all because they have the tools to win.
Alrighty, we'll see how they do today immediately. Then tomorrow, Misfits versus Fnatic. And when we look at Misfits, they bounced back last week in their quarterfinal versus G2 Esports. They had a horrible second half of the split, but all of a sudden, they turned on that best-of-5 prowess. Is playoffs Misfits back, Vedia?
It does look like it. They look so clean in that game versus G2, getting a very convincing 3-0 over their opponents. I was very impressed with what they were able to bring into that matchup, with how clean their preparation looked and how solid as a team they seemed to come together. And Hansama really stepping up, getting those early leads in the bot lane and turning it into strong mid-game performances.
Is it the meta back in their favor for playoffs just in time?
I mean, the meta definitely favors them. What I want to say, though, is that they just went back to what worked for them. I mean, in the later stages of the summer split, they tried different things. They tried to play over top. They tried to play like more assassins mid lane. It just didn't work out for them, so they went back to what works for them, is playing through bot lane, and that's what we're going to see tomorrow as well.
Well, tomorrow it's a huge matchup, Misfits versus Fnatic. Now, same question as for the other teams. If Misfits were to make the run and lift the trophy in Madrid, who or what is it going to come down to?
Well, I think their preparation is going to be a key thing. I think it's something that's really enabled them in these best-of-5, seeing as they always come in prepared with a wealth of strategies and a style that often finds them a lot of success, but it's also going to come down to Hansama and whether or not this team can properly enable him to be that big carry that he has been so many times this split.
For me, it's about being creative in game, because they have said it themselves. They need to be creative for them to actually get early game leads. And I think specifically against Fnatic, it's very same styles. Like they like to play the same way, assuming it's going to be Reckless playing, which I assume he's going to be. So very similar styles, and then it's going to be about the creative jungle paths, the creative gank paths that Mexlor can do.
I can't wait to see it
There's
tomorrow.
a lot of cool stuff going to happen tomorrow.
It's going to be crazy. Misfits versus Fnatic tomorrow, but today, after our first semi-final, rather, in the EULCS post-game lobby, we're also going to check out your favorites to win the EULCS summer split. Hit us up on Twitter with your answer. Who will win the summer split and why? At LOL Esports, using that hashtag ping the lobby. We'll be looking forward to that and reading some of your favorites. And as you know, we pay a lot of attention to Twitter and everything. So before we look at today's action, we're gonna highlight some of the hot takes, the verbal jabs from social media in chat restricted. First up, from our friend Dan Foxdrop Wyatt, Mr. Ocelot, I don't feel so good.
Yeah, this one was quite... I mean, it was that debate around whether it was too soon, but if you didn't do it then, it just wouldn't have had the same impact. And it's such a painful loss for G2, given how beautiful these G2 jerseys look.
Context-wise, this is the special Spanish G2 jersey designed, obviously, for if G2 were to make it to Madrid, which they didn't through missing to Misfits. I did talk to Ocelot yesterday on the G2 podcast, and he said, it's all fair game to me. I get it. I like when people banter. It doesn't hurt me. Plus, they're sold out. So it's all good for me.
He's probably happy, man.
Cold, were you always someone who, if you saw a meme like that about you, would it be influencing your mental state, or?
Not really, honestly. I've had some memes that are probably not appropriate for this show.
Okay. Let's move on.
Don't look at it. But yeah, it doesn't really affect me too much. I think it's just funny, honestly, and I hope you can put a smile on Ocelot's face, even though it's a little unfortunate.
Let's see how funny the next one is. It's from CubeMaster12, and we see that the fish show is still trying to sell nuke. Stop saying this bad boy can play so many different unique champions.
So this one is the play on the slap on car meme where you can fit so many things, and this guy can play so many different champions. He debuted a couple more unique champions, I think, in their quarterfinal against Splice, and expectations are that he'll continue to diversify.
I feel like at this point is like every time the fish is like, it's the year of Nuke Duck, then he's gonna, I'm gonna play a new champion.
I love how he's like, okay, the stats weren't great, so let's zoom in on like how many champions he's played, because that's better. No, good stuff. The fish show jumped off the hype train though. No spoilers. We'll see predictions later. But finally, last week, Amazing and Yamato Cannon, they added some stakes also to their matchup tonight. Here's what they said. Let's talk about Vitality versus Schalke 04. Oh, amazing. This is such a great matchup because there's a lot of, I think, rivalry, innate rivalry, right? There's Attila versus Upset. There's the Kiki story versus Amazing. There's a lot of good stuff for us, but what does it feel like for you?
I mean, honestly, I just don't like him, you know? Like, I don't know what to, like, I feel like that in a lot of cases, I feel like this Kiki story obviously makes their trash talk almost look good because they're like, they suddenly got lucky, like in a streak, and like have someone that basically brings this click that just makes it work. So now, like whatever they said before actually looks like, oh, they're prophets. You know, they knew they were going to be good. You know, so for me, it just feels like there's a lot of hot air coming in. Obviously, they make a lot of fun too out of it, but I personally just don't like him.
Because yesterday we had his honorary Amazing. And he just said about Vitality, well, I don't like him, but you are playing them. So
what
please,
a surprise. None of us like him either. Like, whatever, you know.
Being Ringmaster is one of the favorite parts of being the host of the EULCS. It's just like, you know, what do you have to say? But I love it. It's personal. It seems like it is personal for these two teams today.
I mean, I'm not surprised, honestly. Like, Amazing on one hand is super controversial, and same for the Vitality squad. I had the pleasure sometimes to scrim the Vitality team, and at certain points, I was sure they didn't like us either. So they probably don't like too many teams, honestly. But that's just who they are, and we have to respect it for that.
Right. Bit of the villains. We need a villain. So there we go. G2 got knocked out, so Vitality can be the new villains. Things are heating up there between Yamato and Amazing, but they're also heating up in a race for superior Analyst. Let's take a look at the current leaderboard. I will proclaim myself the people's champion who has a chance to beat VODS and not only have those stuck-up analysts, color casters at the top of it, also Ender is so close to VODS as well, and as you know, there's a lot of points to be earned in playoffs, so
yeah, I hate playoffs. This is when it's the most controversial and where the biggest swings happen. That's why this gap exists between Defish and I, but we do have different predictions today.
Yes, we
I'm
do.
expecting to close the gap once again.
They're ridiculous, but we'll see later.
I'm just disappointed that yet again Defish is on top. Like, and now I need to hear about this for the.
He doesn't shut up.
He is actually the superior analyst.
For now.
Whatever. Well, tonight though, we're gearing up for onto more important things. The much anticipated matchup between Schalke 04 and Vitality as they face off in our very first semi-final. And both of these teams are looking to advance to their first final in history for the organizations. And the fact that we'll see a new name up there in the final is really big for the hype for me personally.
Yeah, I think the fact that these are two new organizations that have the ability to qualify for the finals is a big deal, especially seeing as both of them have worked so hard. Vitality has now been in the European LCS for the last 3 years, and Schalke have had so many struggles and have proclaimed that they want to achieve greatness. Now they both have the opportunity to do so.
And I mean, even though it's two new organizations, a lot of the players have been there before. We see veterans on the team, on the teams, and
even someone who's won.
Kikis has even won title before, and I think it's 2016 spring. So these guys know what's up. It's just the growth of Europe and new organizations coming in, and I think that's exciting.
That is great indeed. When we talk about the Vitality story, we touched on it already beforehand. Look at the whole split or the whole year. They had a plan. They brought in these rookies combined with some of veteran players like Kaboshar, and they did great. They made it all the way to semifinals and unfortunately lost the third place match in spring. And we're really looking at them to evolve, to not just be that team that's aggressive in the early game and that then does better. And they needed some help because it wasn't great from the beginning of summer.
And a lot of it came off the back of Yamato's decision to bring in Kikis. If you guys look at the piano graph that we have behind us, you can see that things were kind of even 50-50 for Vitality for a while. There was a moment where they went on this awful 3-game losing streak, but Week 6, this was the point at which Kikis joined the squad, and that's where this whole team's dynamic changed. They did have that one loss to Schalke, might I add, but it's definitely been a huge improvement ever since Kikis joined the roster.
Interestingly enough, the only team to beat Vitality with Kikis at the end of the split was Schalke. Cold,
should be good for today.
Should be good for today. Yeah. Cold, what is it, the single thing about Kikis that changed Vitality?
Well, when I look at Vitality, they were always the strong early game team, but with Kikis, they found a way to play early game consistently well because Kikis is so good at utilizing his lanes to get ahead, and I think that is really something that he has brought into the league. And then on top of this, he has the experience. He knows what he's doing. He has won the ELCS before, so a lot of positives for him, and I think he has really shown up big in the games.
Yes, he has, though. Their opponents today are Schalke 04, that big football organization that came to the EU LCS in spring with a very star-studded lineup, but it took a while for them to get there, but they now find themselves finally on the verge of greatness and in the semifinals. And Dracos, he got a chance to catch up with the coach of the split earlier. Let's take a look.
Thank you very much, Shox. I am joined by coach of the split, coach of Schalke, Andre. How are you feeling after winning such a prestigious award?
I mean, it obviously feels good. It's not only a prize of mine, it's also a prize of the whole coaching staff of Schalke. And obviously the players that made a big effort and also play a big role on us as a team getting this prize.
It's good to hear you talk about the whole team and the whole staff behind them, but I want to hear specifically what you bring that makes you such a special coach.
I mean, I don't know special, and I don't know what I bring different from other coaches, because that's the magic of a coaching staff, is that you can only see the value of a coach through the performance of a team. And what I think is that we were able to build a really good atmosphere and change some mindset, especially also coming from Fabian, of the players, that led us to learn really fast and to adapt on our best abilities. And that's why most of the players increased their performance in relation to spring. And that's why we are here with one best-of-5 away to go to the finals.
It is a very tight situation you find yourselves in. One more best-of-5, earning that spot in the finals in Madrid. I'm curious, what specifically did you prepare, or how specifically did you prepare coming into this week after your best-of-5 versus Splice?
So we worked on some of the mistakes that we had mid-game against Splice, but our main focus was obviously around early game because we need to be able to control Kikis very well in this series if you want to take the win. So that's where we end up focusing, and also on our closing. And I think that if we are able to apply what we learned of early game during this week, then I think we have pretty good chances against Vitality.
All right, congrats again on the award and best of luck in your best of 5 today. Back to you with the desk, Shocks.
Thank you very much. Congrats also from our side to Andre and Schalke 04. He is the coach of the split, and he said it there. We need to shore up our early game, and we need to control Kikis. And the jungle matchups is arguably one of the most exciting matchups in this game, specifically called Amazing versus Kikis. They couldn't be more different.
True. I mean, who doesn't like to talk about jungle, right? I think we have actually two very different styles of jungle today. Like, we have Amazing, who is, in my opinion, more of an old school player. He likes to set up his team and play more on the safe side, and then on the other side we have Kikis, who plays more modernly. And what I mean by that is he likes to use his lanes to get himself ahead and then use his lead to accelerate the game. And we can see he likes to play a lot on the edge. Obviously, sometimes there's risk to it, and it can backfire, but I really like what I've seen from Kikis, and I think he is the core of why Vitality will potentially win today.
Well, you guys did look at some in-game examples you want to run us through, so go ahead and share.
Yes, Shocks. I'm joined with Cole to talk a little bit more about this jungle matchup, but we also want to hear from you guys at home. Vote in chat who your favorite jungler is and who you think is the best, spamming Kikis or Amazing. So, Cold, we talked a little bit earlier about what a jungler needs to know. So walk me through these 3 things that all junglers should know.
For me, there are 3 important things that either makes or breaks the early game from a jungle perspective. And first of all, you need to understand the 1v1 jungle-wise. Are you stronger? Are you weaker? And how you play around it. Second, the information you have, vision, jungle rotations. And the third is how does the lane work, who has priority, and how you can play around this.
So we have this replay here from Schalke versus Splice in the quarterfinal. We have an Olaf for Amazing. He's going up against Xerxes Gragas. Talk to me about this 1v1.
Yes. So in this case, Amazing on the Olaf is stronger than the Gragas in the early game, and he can try to play around this with either invading or playing over lanes. And so I just want to point out, with the information given, what we can look at. Where's the minimap?
This is the minimap, Cold. You have the minimap. So talk me through some of the information that he does have.
Exactly. So we know he's stronger in the 1v1. We know that with the information in the bottom side that they have full vision on the bottom side of the map. So he knows that Xerxes on Gragas will path from the top side into the bottom side, as we can see here. So I expect Amazing to invade over bot side because he should have mid priority with the Syndra. But let's see what happens.
So let's run the replay, and we're going to see that Amazing, he starts off on his red camp. He's then actually going to clear through both the Krugs and Raptors, which doesn't really tie in with what you were talking about.
No, I think here he makes the first mistake by clearing his top side instead of looking to utilize the fact that he's stronger in the 1v1 and can look to invade. Instead, he decides to base and get boots and go back on the map.
So you can see that he isn't able to utilize the lane priority that Syndra is able to gain from. Syndra even gets ganked as well, shifting the lane priority back over towards the side of Splice. And then Amazing, he tries to go for an invade here.
So this is the second invade where he tries to invade, even though he doesn't have mid lane priority, and ending up wasting a lot of time by trying to get Xerxes' red buff, and is in danger of getting collapsed on. So even though he misses all these opportunities to get himself ahead, what actually happened is that he decides to go for a bottom gank, as we will see here, and get his bot lane ahead. So it kind of shows the way Amazing plays the game, where he likes to set up his lanes and not so much about himself.
Yeah, he much prefers to play for the team rather than trying to set himself up ahead. But Cole, why don't you set us up for the next replay, where we can look at how the difference with Kikis, and we talked a little bit how he prefers to play for himself. Now remember, jungle 1v1, the information available, lane priority. Cold, run us through that for Kikis.
Let's look at the minimap for once. And so first of all, Kindred against Trundle. As long as you can kite the Trundle, you should be winning the 1v1. Second of all, what kind of information does he have? We can see that he has a ward in here, so he knows that in this case, Jankos on Trundle, he starts on the bottom side of the map, and he should, as the replay before, path into this. So I expect Kikis to invade over the top side and look to take advantage of this information given to him. So let's see.
We'll run the replay. What does Kickers decide to do? He starts off on the red buff, immediately paths up towards the enemy red buff because he knows he should win out on the 1v1. He has information of where the enemy jungler started, and because he has that lane priority in the mid lane. This just kind of ties in what you were saying, Cold, where if you want to build those early leads, these are the kind of tools you need to utilize.
Yeah, so I mean, what I wanted to show with this is that Kikis understands that what he needs to do in the jungle 1v1 and how he can utilize the lane priority he has in this case on the Zoe to get himself ahead and his team ahead. Where in the other case, Amazing more so plays towards getting his team ahead and not necessarily putting himself in a good spot.
Now, you guys at home were voting for who you think is the better jungler in this case, and we have the vote saying that 57% of you believe that Kikis is the stronger jungler, which means that 43% actually believe that Amazing stands a chance.
And I do want to say, though, these are two very extreme cases where one guy doesn't utilize the 3 points, and Kikis in this case almost plays it to perfection. But so my eyes in this case are on Amazing. He needs to step up together with his team to shut down Kikis in this case. So I don't know. Can they shut down the Beast?
Well, we're going to find out tonight. It's time to settle the score as two fierce rivals face off in the battle to reach the summer final. This is Vitality versus Schalke.
It's going to be the big deciding team fight in the game. Upset is on the side here. He's actually teaming.
Teleport away. They're going to go for the teleporting away. They go for the base. Do they realize? Do they notice that Upset and Nuke are pushing in the wave? The Realm will use this well to bring the minions in. Fly's not going to get back. They get it. One teleport's going to come out. Oh my God, Schalke, what was that?
When I saw how they played late game, I just knew we have the upper hand. We managed to throw one game. It kind of affected us a bit.
Frustration played a big part. We were actually strong mentally and managed to bounce back. And now I'm here after game 5. I want to live up to my own expectations of who I am as a player.
For me, it's extremely important to get to Madrid as a finalist and not anything else. Vitality looks extremely strong with Kikis. Cabochard is quite a fearsome opponent, but I can be fiercer.
We are one of the best in Europe, if not the best, if we can prove that. And of course, we're gonna be prideful in that.
Being focused by Nuke. A sidestep on the power! Jizuke 2 shots upset!
We were pissed that they took our second spot, and we were here to take revenge on them.
Our playstyle is really aggressive, and it's the hardest way of winning a game when you actually stop the enemy and you give them no chance of coming back. You're actually putting the mental warfare into the enemies because you're not just winning, you're smashing them.
Us and Vitality are probably rivals at this point. We kind of like aim to be upsetting the kings of Europe, and that makes us the ones that are knocking at heaven's door in the end.
I'm proud for how we are performing so far, but it's not enough for me. I'm really looking to get into the Worlds for the first time, and then I can say I'm proud.
All the hype that was around us before the spring split started was justified, and we are actually a top team in this region.
I definitely want to make Worlds. If we're here to take over Europe, I really want to take it over to the next level.